Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's been about a year and a half since my last trading video, so I thought it was about time to update you guys on my journey and kind of give you a whole summarized view of my trading process and how I've gotten to where I have. I've about 50X'd my account from where I started, which I started with a decent amount. It wasn't like $1,000, so the 50X is meaningful, and I have full faith that I will continue to do this with my current trading process because I feel it is super foundational. It's very strong. I didn't get lucky on a couple setups. I built multiple setups and scaled them individually, and I'm going to break down that process with you guys today. I also added in some pictures just to add in more depth to the video. The picture on the left is my setup in Puerto Rico, where I moved there in 2023, which I have a video on that if you guys haven't seen that. I kind of break it down more there. But that whole experience has been amazing so far, and I have zero regrets moving there. The community is amazing, and I'll break it down later. The setup on the right is my travel setup. I just got back from Japan a couple weeks ago, or literally last weekend. Time is weird when you're a trader. Time is just weird. Like, on one aspect, it feels extremely fast. Like, I can't believe I moved over a year and a half ago to Puerto Rico, but at the same time, it feels so long. Like, it feels so long ago. Like, 2024 was filled with so much action and so many memories. But let's get right into it. So, I'm going to take you A to Z, my trading process. You want to start by generating ideas. You want to sit down and think, what setups do you know exist? What setups have you traded? What setups have you seen work for others? All right? You just list them all down. Just spitball them. Boom, 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 boom. List them all down, right? Now, forget about every single setup you've ever known and think outside of the box. I would say half my profitable strategies are from setups that you probably know about, but I've adjusted to my own liking. But the other half of strategies I've completely come up with on my own. I don't know anyone else that trades them, and a lot of the traders that I know behind the scenes are trading strategies that you have no idea about. So that is edge in itself. Either you have to take something and make it your own, or you have to just completely make something your own. And how I come to the conclusion of finding these outside of the box setups is just thinking all the time about what might work. What might work. So I'm looking at charts, whatever. I'm like, I always think about the craziest ideas that might work. And that's where we get into the next stage. Test those ideas. A lot of people have different means of testing their ideas, but I feel like people aren't very structured in this. They're kind of like, oh, this strategy looks good. I'm going to trade it, see how it works out. 6 months go by and you're kind of in the same spot because you're not super structured on, okay, I'm going to test this idea. I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to scale it. If it doesn't, boom, I'm going to move on. I feel like people move too slow. They kind of wait 6-12 months. And it's kind of like, wow, nothing has really happened. I've kind of just bounced around. This is more of a structured way. That's why I feel for my future, I can continue to do as well as I have, because even if my current setups don't work as well, I can take this process and continue scaling into new ideas. So you're going to want to test these ideas. And like I said, people have different ways of testing. This is how I have tested. I am a hybrid systematic discretionary trader. So I look at a chart, I look at a setup, and it's a discretionary read initially. It's like, okay, this setup, this pattern looks like this. There's different nuances of the pattern, which only my eye can see. I can't turn that into, well, I can turn it into data, but it's not data. It's not like, oh, the stock's up 100%, I'm going to short it. I'm not like that. I'm more of a pattern-based trader. So it takes discretion, but at the same time, I like to turn that into a system. And how I do that is I look at the chart, right? I look at all the patterns, and I literally go into Excel and I back test these things. I I put names to different patterns that I see with my eye, and as long as they're very consistent, as long as they're very similar to each other, it's proper back testing in my eyes. So I create guidelines and rules around these discretionary ideas to create a system. So what I mean by guidelines and rules is like, all right, there's an entry signal, risk signal, exit signal. This can be anything. It could be data, but usually it's a pattern. And the pattern isn't data, so you can't just go on to Excel. When people think Excel, they think, oh, the stock's up 100%. It's got this float, blah, 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 this numbers. I'm more of a turn the discretion into data. So literally, for example, one of my columns in Excel when I'm backtesting is the pattern that I see with my discretionary eye. And I just, name all the different patterns. And because of that, I can turn my discretionary reads into more of data, and that allows me to backtest all my different ideas. So pretty much 100% of my setups in play have been Excel backtested in depth, lots of samples, and in many different ways. I try to break the system. I try to see what works better with it. And if I have an idea that's promising, then I move on to the next stage, which I'll break down soon. But you're going to want to go through that list of 5-10 ideas that you have and test them all. You don't have to do Excel backtest, but I would at least create rules and guidelines for consistent execution, because if your execution is all over the place, you're not going to get consistent. You're not going to get accurate data to look at in your forward tests, which the forward test is just, you trading the setup for a month or two and seeing what the results are like. If your trading is very sporadic and the execution is not consistent, that data is not going to be reliable. So you're going to want to backtest it if you can. If you don't want to backtest it, I would at least create consistent rules and guidelines for the setup so that your execution is consistent. So once you've done that, once you've tested the idea, it looks good, you move on to the next stage, which is scaling, which is my bread and butter part, is the scaling part. Once I have an idea, it's kind of easy to go into Excel and find a setup that's profitable. So now is the scaling part, which is the most important part in my opinion, which is to create account partitions. Now, this is something that I came up with out of the box thinking. It's where you take your account and you only take a portion of that. Let's use the example of a $100,000 account. You take 10% of that, and that's $10,000, right? Now you attach that to a setup. So you have an idea. It looks good in the back test. You want to attach that setup to the $10,000 account. Obviously, I have all my money in one account, but I'm only trading based on a hypothetical $10,000 account. And I risk a percentage of that per trade. Usually I start at 3%. And the account partition is really just dependent on you. If you have $5,000 to trade, maybe you do 50% of that and use that as the partition. But if you have a full PDT account, maybe you only do 10%, which is $2,500. I scaled my first six-figure strategy starting at a $1,000 account partition, risking 3% per trade. Now, the drawdowns are going to be big in that partition. You're going to go through 50% drawdowns in that partition. But even worst case scenario, if the strategy just sucks and you lose every single trade, you're only going to lose what that partition is. You're not going to lose your entire account, which is where I see a lot of people go wrong. They lose it all because they're risking based on everything they have. This is more of a way to structure it in a way that allows you to scale the winners, because you're risking a high percent. You're risking 3% of that partition. And if you go into Excel and just simulate this, $1,000 account with 3% risk per trade, a good setup is going to scale that extremely fast. And you're going to be in $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 growth fairly quickly in like 6 months if it's a good strategy. So that's why I structure it like that, because it's very low risk of your overall account, but it's very high upside. Now, how I track this is I have an Excel where I have each of my accounts and their partitions, and after every single day, I tag those trades and I attach the P&L to their respective partition. Now, with that, you can adjust your risk every single day based on the setup's performance. So if one of your setups is performing really well, the size is going to go up. If another setup is performing bad, the size is going to go down. And this way, a bad setup isn't going to impact your good setup. It's not going to slow your growth because another strategy is doing bad. That's another problem with having everything in one account, risking 1%. If you have a whole account, let's say $100,000, risking 1% per trade, if you have one strategy that's good, one strategy that's bad, it's going to equal each other out and you're not going to grow. But if you have a super high risk 3% per trade partition on each, over time, the strategy that's bad is going to just kind of slow down because of the reverse compound. You're not going to lose that much, but the compound on the good setup is going to go crazy. Now that is how I scale all my ideas. Now, once you've done that, it takes a year. I would say just a bunch of testing ideas, finding ideas, putting them to scale, testing them for a month or two, I feel like is good. It depends on the sample size. But once you've done that and you've gotten one or two profitable strategies, and I would say focus, get the execution down. So if you have a profitable strategy, do everything you can to maximize that for sure. But then once you've gotten that, once everything's settled and you feel like, you're reaching the end of maximization on the particular strategy, start testing new ideas and do the same process as before. Risk, 5 or 10% of your account into a partition and risk 3% per trade of that. Now, on your mature setups, which are profitable, you can reduce the risk because remember, you're risking a super high percent, 3% initially. But when your setup scales, it's going to become majority of the account. Let's say you start with $50,000 account, you partition $20,000 of it, which is a high amount, and you scale that $20,000 to $200,000. Now that one setup is all of your account, so you're pretty much risking the whole account. And you're going through probably 50% drawdowns during the scaling process. So you're going to want to scale that back a little bit if it's in your tolerance, just to stay, smart about it all. Now, 1.5 to 2.5%, it's still very high, but it also cuts your drawdowns a lot. So 50% drawdown, super easy to deal with when it's a small portion of your account. 50% drawdown of the partition is what I mean. Super easy to deal with. But when it's your whole account, it's very difficult to deal with. So cutting the risk, a little bit down to 30% drawdown, 25% drawdown, that's very much more manageable. Now, when you're testing these new ideas, again, you could do now 5% of that $200,000 account. So you're starting with a lot more initially. And when the next one hits, when you get a profitable setup, it's going to scale in the same way. And over time, you're going to develop a diverse playbook of setups and the consistency will grow. So if you have one setup that's performing really well on a month and another setup that's not performing as well, it's going to show in your equity curve that it's very smooth rather than just having one setup that's, very choppy. So this is everything. I kind of forgot to talk about the pictures. I put them in just to touch on notes, but beaches in Puerto Rico, beautiful. Nature in Puerto Rico, beautiful. And my favorite part is the community. I feel like there's always people coming to see me on the island. My friends, my family, they love it there, so they all come out, and it's amazing. And also the community on the island is just awesome. Playing beach tennis every weekend and hanging out. There's a lot of really good traders there and a lot of really good people. So it's really fun. And this last picture is me flexing. I got a Tesla with my roommate. So the Tesla was $10,000 for me. That's a steal in my opinion. But yeah, it's really cool just to see the results of trading show over time. And you can go back on some of my videos. My favorite one is the one where I break down why I skipped college for trading. And at that point, I hadn't really scaled that much at all. I was I think I was still break even at that point. But it just shows that, it's all about developing the right process that's going to serve you for the foreseeable future. And like I said, if my current setups stop performing as well, I have no doubt that I can generate 5 more profitable ideas and scale them in the same way. And I'm still doing that to this day. I still have, I have the profitable setups that I'm trading, but I'm also testing new ideas as well as still trying to maximize the setups that are profitable. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I just wanted to make this quick video. I hope you all are killing it. I mean, the market is super hot right now. It is just as hot in terms of gappers and movers and multi-day runners as 2020, 2021. I wasn't trading then, but the numbers show that, the sample size is, up to that level again here in 2024, 2025. So it's a great time to get a process down and start testing ideas in a rigid way rather than, bouncing around everywhere. Bouncing around is what kills traders because, years go by and they couldn't get anything off the ground. And it's time, they end up calling it quits because it's super hard. But if you're more rigid and structured like this, I feel like you can work more towards developing mental models and processes that are going to serve you forever. So yeah, have a good year, everyone. Peace.